The message arrived while Claire was sitting in the parking lot outside an interview that could change the direction of her career. Her mother had sent a photograph of the family dinner table, already covered with plates, glasses, and the food Claire had eaten every Sunday since childhood. Everyone was seated except her. In the center of the picture stood one empty chair. Beneath it, her mother had written, "Do not worry about us. We are getting used to doing things without you." There was no command, no insult, and no direct request to come home. Yet Claire immediately felt as if she had committed an act of betrayal. Her hand moved toward the car key. She began composing an apology, although she had explained the interview 2 weeks earlier. In that instant, the interview stopped feeling like an opportunity and started feeling like evidence against her character. This is how guilt often works inside families. It does not remove your freedom openly. It makes freedom feel so painful that surrender begins to resemble love. Pressure from a stranger is easier to identify because a stranger cannot reach backward through your history. Family can. They remember who cared for you when you were helpless, who paid for lessons, and who made sacrifices you were too young to understand. Those memories can inspire gratitude, but they can also become an emotional account that never closes. Every independent decision becomes another payment due. You may choose your path, provided they approve of the direction. Because the pressure arrives wrapped in real love and genuine history, resisting it can feel cruel even when the demand is unreasonable. There is an important difference between disappointment and manipulation. Your family is allowed to miss you. A mother may feel hurt when her daughter misses dinner. Healthy closeness does not require emotional indifference. The difference lies in what people do with their feelings. An honest person says, "I am disappointed because I wanted you here." That leaves the feeling with the person experiencing it. Guilt turns the emotion into a verdict. If you cared about us, you would be here. Now your decision is no longer being discussed. Your love and goodness have been placed on trial. Claire learned this language early. Whenever her mother became upset, Claire explained herself until the tension disappeared. If a relative complained, she changed her plans. Nobody announced the rule, but everyone understood it. A good daughter prevented the family from feeling disappointed. Her own disappointment was considered part of adulthood. Theirs was an emergency she had to solve. Over time, direct demands became unnecessary. A sigh could rearrange her weekend. A delayed reply could make her cancel plans. Even "do whatever you want" carried a penalty of silence, wounded expressions, or stories about more devoted children. Claire anticipated these reactions before making decisions. Control no longer needed to enter the room because it had acquired a voice inside her. That voice called itself conscience, but conscience and conditioned guilt are not the same. Healthy guilt appears when you violate a value you genuinely hold, break a promise, deceive someone, or cause avoidable harm. It asks you to repair something. Conditioned guilt appears when you disappoint an expectation that another person never had the right to turn into an obligation. It does not ask whether you acted dishonestly. It asks whether somebody is unhappy with your independence. Guilt is therefore not automatic proof that you have done something wrong. Sometimes it is evidence that you have stopped doing what kept everyone else comfortable. Claire forgot this distinction when she saw the empty chair. She replied with a long message explaining the interview, the scheduling conflict, and the importance of the position. She reminded her mother that she had attended every Sunday dinner that month and promised to visit on Tuesday. Her explanation was factual, considerate, and completely ineffective. Her mother answered, "You do not need to justify yourself. We already understand where we stand." A few minutes later, Claire's brother entered the conversation. "Mom has done everything for you. The least you could do is show up when the family needs you." No one explained what urgent need existed that evening. The meal had become a referendum on gratitude. Claire responded with more facts. The interview could not be rescheduled. She had mentioned it before. Missing one dinner did not erase years of participation. Each answer created a new accusation. When she described the importance of the interview, they said her career mattered more than family. When she mentioned previous dinners, they accused her of keeping score. When she promised to visit later, they said love should not require an appointment. The subject kept moving because the real issue was not scheduling. Claire was expected to prove that the family still possessed the power to interrupt her life. This is the trap of over-explaining. You believe that if your reason becomes persuasive enough, the other person will release you from guilt. But when someone thinks your choice requires their approval, every explanation becomes an application for permission. They do not have to refute your entire position. They only need to find one detail they can question, and suddenly, you are defending yourself again. The conversation continues until exhaustion makes compliance easier than clarity. Claire deleted the next paragraph before sending it. She put the phone down, entered the building, and completed the interview. When she returned to her car, the messages were waiting, but she did not answer immediately. She allowed the first wave of guilt to move through her without obeying it. Then she wrote one sentence. I understand that you are disappointed, but I am not going to make this decision out of guilt. The sentence did not deny her mother's feelings. I understand, acknowledged that the disappointment was real. It did not apologize for an accusation Claire no longer accepted. By naming disappointment, she separated a human emotion from claims that she was selfish or disloyal. By saying, I am not going to make this decision, she returned responsibility for her life to herself. The final words identified the pressure without diagnosing the person applying it. She avoided labels because they would invite a debate about character and obscure the behavior. Claire was not diagnosing anyone. She was refusing to let guilt make her decisions. Those exact words do not demand agreement. I understand that you are disappointed, but I am not going to make this decision out of guilt. You are not asking anyone to admit manipulation. You are explaining what will no longer determine your answer. Say it plainly, without mockery or punishment. Calmness is not superiority. It prevents emotional speed from deciding the conversation. A healthy relative may dislike the boundary and recognize it. They might say, I am disappointed, but I should have told you. That response preserves both realities. They wanted something different, and your choice remains yours. Nobody has to erase a feeling or surrender autonomy. A person accustomed to controlling through guilt may avoid the sentence completely. They may say, you have become cold, or we cannot say anything to you anymore. Notice the shift. You have not prohibited honest feelings. You have only refused to let those feelings function as commands. Yet the boundary is reframed as cruelty because the previous arrangement depended on your discomfort-producing obedience. If that happens, you can answer, you can tell me how you feel, but I will not have my love measured by whether I obey. Again, the purpose is not to win. It is to keep the real subject visible. Love and obedience are not interchangeable, even when a family has treated them as though they were. The pressure may then travel backward through time. Someone will mention money, childhood sacrifices, difficult years, or opportunities they abandoned for you. Gratitude matters, but gratitude is not permanent ownership. Parents are entitled to appreciation. They are not entitled to convert necessary care into unlimited authority over an adult child. A gift that becomes a lifetime contract was never fully a gift. When indirect accusations continue, a second sentence can clarify the pattern. If you want to ask me for something, ask me directly. Please do not make me responsible for feelings you have not expressed honestly. This invites communication while refusing emotional riddles. The family must either make a clear request, which can be considered, or continue using implication and punishment, which can now be recognized. Sometimes the response becomes harsher. Relatives may withdraw, exclude you from conversations, recruit other family members, or repeat a distorted version of what happened. This does not mean the sentence failed. Boundaries often produce resistance before they produce clarity, because systems defend arrangements that benefit them. The sentence did not create the conflict. It removed the politeness that had been hiding it. Safety matters. If family pressure includes threats, financial restriction, violence, or control over housing and essential documents, one sentence is not a complete solution. Confrontation can increase danger. Private support, careful planning, documentation, and professional assistance may matter more than verbal precision. A boundary is useful only when it respects reality. Not every guilt-inducing comment is calculated. Families inherit this language. People never taught to say, I miss you, may say, you have forgotten us. Someone fearing lost closeness may accuse because vulnerability feels humiliating. The behavior can be unconscious and still harmful. Understanding its origin may create compassion, but compassion does not require continuing the pattern. Notice when you use guilt yourself. Have you punished someone for saying no, listed past favors to obtain compliance, or called them selfish because their choice disappointed you. Identifying manipulation only in others creates self-righteousness, not maturity. A healthy boundary must allow freedom in both directions. The most reliable test is not one imperfect sentence, but what happens after clarity. Can the person express a need directly? Can they tolerate an answer they dislike? Can they recognize the pressure they created and change their approach? Or do they escalate until obedience returns? Patterns reveal what isolated words cannot. Later that evening, Claire looked at the photograph again. The chair no longer appeared to prove that she had abandoned anyone. It represented the place reserved for an earlier version of her, the daughter who attended, explained, apologized, and absorbed every disappointment before it could reach the rest of the family. Her mother was not simply reacting to an empty chair. The family was confronting the loss of a role. Claire still felt guilty. This surprised her because she had imagined that a correct boundary would produce immediate relief. Instead, freedom and guilt occupied the same moment. That did not invalidate her decision. You do not need to feel completely innocent before you are allowed to make an independent choice. Emotions often preserve old rules long after your mind has recognized that those rules are unfair. The useful question is not simply, do I feel guilty? Ask what the guilt is pointing toward. Did you betray a value, break a promise, or cause harm that requires repair? Or did you merely refuse an expectation that someone preferred to keep unquestioned? One form of guilt guides you back toward integrity. The other guides you back toward compliance. Claire attended the next family dinner because she wanted to be there. She sat in the same chair from the photograph, but its meaning had changed. It no longer represented a debt she had to repay. It represented a choice she was free to make. The next time family presents love as an obligation that must be proven through obedience, do not build a defense long enough to exhaust yourself. Acknowledge the feeling, separate it from the decision, and say, I understand that you are disappointed, but I am not going to make this decision out of guilt. A family may dislike your answer and still respect your freedom. If freedom itself is treated as betrayal, the real problem was never the empty chair.